I'm Andrew. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Klarity. Good afternoon. For those of you who don't know us, we partner with Fortune 500 and cutting-edge companies to deliver AI outcomes. We work with cybersecurity companies, industrial, manufacturing, real estate, other AI companies, SaaS companies, financial services, fintech, communications, government, healthcare, and many, many others. And I want to start here. Transformation is dead. So let's have a 5-second silence for transformation. Let's observe it. And we can get ahead and get started. So first of all, vast majority of transformation projects actually don't succeed. They fail. Harvard Business Review and BCG say you have about 30% chance of success when you're running a transformation project. And success rate meaning that the project is actually finished and you're actually getting value that you were expecting to get. McKinsey is the most optimistic here at 31%. And so you're probably paying millions of dollars to get that 1% advantage. And when we talk about transformation, we mean projects like these. A lot of these are related to systems, like ERP modernization, CPQ re-implementation, process optimizations or process transformations in order to cash and procure to pay, hire to retire, record to report, offshoring, you name it. And then a lot of it is also post-M&A integration. And with M&A heating up again, a lot of us are running multiple different post-M&A integration projects. But there's one more area under the question mark, but I'll actually leave it covered for now, and I'll come back to it later towards the end of the presentation. We also learned a lot about transformation projects, not just by reading BCG and McKinsey reports, but we also learned a lot firsthand. This actual chart is our revenue growth from 2020. And for the investors in the room, I know you would love to see the actual numbers, but we're not going to disclose those at this point. But we deployed our first working AI process automation in 2020. And by 2025, we built the world's largest kind of AI for finance transformation or finance automation business in the world. And so what was the key to our success? Well, we always focused on outcomes. We were being obsessed about these outcomes. Actual outcomes measured by us moving the core financial or operational metrics in the direction that our customers actually wanted. And let me show you a few examples of the outcomes that we're talking about. So for CrowdStrike, we automated their bookings review process. Since they implemented Klarity, they grew revenue by more than 2 times without adding any additional headcount or cost whatsoever. And they book and bill orders from enterprise customers within 6 minutes. It used to be measured in days. Now it's measured in minutes. For DoorDash, and Gordon is here, we automated their ASC 606 assurance process, and we took their coverage from 19% to 100%. And they grew their revenue, they grew their volume by 2x. And then finally, Jackie from Genesis described it the best. We allowed her revenue team to do twice the work in half the time. And so these are like pretty incredible outcomes, right? We actually moved the very core financial metrics and operating metrics. But what we realized is that every single time we were implementing these, we were running a large-scale transformation project. And these transformation projects are just like insanely hard. And I actually want to share something with you that we've never shared publicly before. It's a pretty vulnerable moment, and our own success rates for implementing these super large AI automation projects. We were at 54.5% success rate. That's almost twice the industry average, but nowhere near good enough. We actually think about this like as a huge failure. And my co-founder, Nisral, who's coming after me, wanted me to make sure that you know that this is for Klarity 1.0 and 2.0. Those days are long gone. Those are old products. It's not 3.0, which you implemented in the last 18 months. It's not 4.0, which we're releasing on September 23rd in Palo Alto later this month. So this was our past. But what it made us realize is that this failure made us focus really on actually how to transform transformation itself. Like that seems like a really, really, really big problem to solve. And so we asked ourselves, why is transformation so insanely hard? It's time. You know the popular saying, time kills all deals? Well, it turns out that time kills all transformation projects. It's actually like this chart, when we plotted the data in the chart, and we put it in ChatGPT and said, like, what are other similar charts? The number one hit was CPR survival chart. With every single second you don't get a CPR, you're more likely to die. And so we realized it's like, okay, well, let's dig deeper into this. How do these transformation projects actually work? And so let's take a look at one. It's always these kind of like three key steps: current state capture, or as is, desired state, kind of to be, and then change management. Like how do you actually, make sure that like everybody understands what they should be doing in this new world? And so you always start with a strategic objective, right? This is one of the most popular ones that we see these days. How to keep G&A flat while growing revenue by X%. We put in 21%, but like you put your number in. And it starts like this. First, people show up and start looking at your existing documentation, your artifacts, what your video process walkthroughs that you have for SOX or for training. Then they start interviewing your team, essentially asking, so what do you do here? A few hundred times. Then you write up everything in like really detailed standard operating procedures or desktop procedures. Then somebody manually tries to find relationships between all of these different processes and map them out. And at this point, you're already 6 months in, sometimes even more. You haven't even started transforming, you're just trying to understand how the damn thing actually works. And then you move to designing what do you want your future to look like, which means you get a PowerPoint deck, sometimes a few. Then you get few $100,000 spreadsheets. Those are like fit gap analyses for ERP capabilities. For those of you who have implemented SAP, your RICE-FW tagging sheets. And then finally, when you're towards the end of the transformation project, the team builds your future SOPs, they build your training guides, they build your compliance documentation, typically SOX narratives. And because the project was so long and tiring, you basically have one training session, and then the team leaves, calls it a day, and moves on to the next transformation project. Like, this is like boring even like talking about it. Like, check your own energy level. Like, it's so draining. And so what we realized is the actual like key problem, yes, time is complicit to this, but it's transformation fatigue. If we get this fatigued over the last minute or two talking about it, you get so much more fatigued over months and years of a transformation project. And so, I don't know if this is too early to make this joke, but like this thing spreads faster than COVID, I think. And it infects both people and entire companies. And so what we realized is like really like this is the chart that speaks to it. It's like around like a 3-month mark, that's when the transformation fatigue sets in and then exponentially grows quickly. And there's two sides to it. I think there's a human fatigue that each participant in the project feels, but I also think there's like a large organizational fatigue. And so let's look at both of those. So on the individual side, quick wins in transformation projects are extremely rare. You usually have to get the whole thing done to get a win. So you're running month after month after month hoping for the best. The second thing is like, it's for most people who are participating in a transformation project, it's not their main job. So you kind of have to ask them to do 2 different jobs for a pretty long period of time. And then finally, you can't see the big picture, right? It's really hard if you're an AP processor, for example, somewhere. It's really hard to see the big picture and maintain this level of excitement over a long period of time. And so on the company side, it feels more like the world around you keeps on moving. You have changing regulation, right? So right now we're talking a lot about tariffs. How many times tariffs changed? Our customers keep evolving, and the preferences keep changing faster than ever before. It's like butterfly flapping its wings, and there's a new customer trend. And then finally, markets keep evolving. We couldn't find a better emoji, but we're just all hoping that Powell is going to lower interest rates and actually make a change here. And so the problem is that we're running these as projects, but projects rather than a continuous effort has high activation and sustenance energy. And this is really strange because we all need these all the time. Like, just think about your own project, right? You probably have a couple of these. You have a system or a couple of different system projects. You have a couple of process redesign projects. You have a post-M&A integration project. And you're running these projects all the time. But they shouldn't be projects. And so that's why we say the transformation is dead. But there's one last thing. Transformation fundamentally does not work for AI. I'm sure everybody has seen this, the case study from MIT, which found that 95% of all Gen AI pilots fail. And we know that this is not like your typical MIT study, since the methodology is like, let's say, light. It's basically just called a bunch of people and asked, how successful it was. But the core point, the core finding still stands, and it checks out with our own experience. And so the reason why all of these pilots actually fail is what we call a massive kind of AI learning gap. And so this is a technology like we've never seen before. It's completely horizontal and really requires everyone to explore how to actually use it in their own day-to-day. And I'm sure that you all relate. We all have a few people on our teams who are just AI forward. They became AI fluent easily. They almost feel like AI native. But the problem is, like, how do you actually replicate that to the remaining 90% plus people so they can actually follow their suit and actually get that massive productivity growth? And that's when it struck us. Transformation is this kind of like rigid concept. It's built around complex systems, processes, and then teaching people a way to do it, right? Oftentimes, even until a couple of years ago, we talked more about digital transformation than transformation. How do we take all these paper processes and make them digital with these like large underlying ERPs and other systems that help to facilitate that, and then we just teach everybody how to actually do this. But AI is fundamentally fluid. It's all about empowering people and helping them to learn and change their behaviors. It's about Sinyoung, it's about Emmanuel, it's about David, it's about Ariel, Ben, Bahir, and Chloe. They're all here. And it's about like how they get this continuous coaching to know how to be much more productive. It's not about big rigid systems and processes. And so we put these two things together. So on the left side, you have the large transformation projects that you're running, your ERP, CPQ modernizations, your large process redesigns, offshoring, post-M&A integration efforts. And running these projects, it just doesn't work anymore. You need to figure out a way how to do this continuously. And then what's on the right side? Well, it's really only one thing that you need to do right. Making your teams AI fluent. That's the actual real AI revolution that we're all working towards. But we're starting to realize that we're approaching the problem with our traditional transformation toolkit. It's just not working. And so AI is fluid. It's about people and changing behaviors. It's much less about rigid systems and processes. So we actually think like transformation is very dead. It has ceased to be. But you'll be glad to hear that we have a new way how to approach this. And so I'm very excited to invite my co-founder and Klarity CTO, Nisral, on stage, and he will tell you all about it. It's something that we call always on Kaizen.
Hey, everybody. Great to see you all. Thank you all so much for making it out. So Andrew told you the transformation is dead, and I want to describe the new way that we think is going to be the future. We call this always on Kaizen. So super quick history lesson. What is Kaizen? It's actually a very, very simple idea, this idea of continuous improvement. Things are always getting better. And one of the key ingredients of Kaizen is decentralized power. Everybody is improving things at the same time, not just top-down decision-making. Kaizen basically became synonymous with Toyota because they were the first ones to really put this to work at scale in the 1950s. And the results speak for themselves. I mean, I think they went from 26,000 cars per year to more than 10 million in 2012. They've built more than 300 million cars to date. A Corolla rolls off the lot every 60 seconds. So this really, really works, which begs the question, what did Toyota actually do? It was really three things. So the first is visibility. Because they're assembling physical products, they were able to organize themselves in such a way that every worker could see what was actually happening. So you have basically visibility into what your coworkers are doing, what you're assembling. But cars are not simple. And so they built this common truth, this mental model. This is an actual picture of what they use. It's this chart where if there's a defect in the car, it would like light up in a specific part. So everybody had this sense of, all right, this is what we're building, and this is how we know if something goes wrong. They had this common language. And then third, there was mass employee participation. It wasn't a right or a benefit, it was an obligation. If you were in a Toyota factory, you had to contribute. It was your duty to point out if something was going wrong, to improve the process. So this begs the question, if this Kaizen thing is so great, then why the hell aren't we all doing it today? Well, what worked well for Toyota is actually very, very difficult to replicate in modern enterprise, particularly in digital enterprise. The reason it's so hard is we don't have visibility. So in a large enterprise of tens of thousands of people manufacturing a very sophisticated product that's not even physical, it is very hard to know what your teammates are doing, let alone what the entire organization is doing. And there's not a common truth. Same reason, there's such a high level of complexity, there's thousands of SKUs. It is impossible for any one person to know how the entire organization is operating. And so we've intentionally designed roles in such a way that the amount of context any one person needs to hold is not too much. And as a result of both of these, we intentionally decentralize power, or we intentionally centralize power. It would be catastrophic if each person were deciding how they want to modify their process based on their own gut instinct. That would be terrible. And so we've intentionally designed transformation and other change efforts so that there's very few decision makers. What we need is Kaizen. And in fact, these hats are actually real. We have a bunch of them at our booth, so you should come grab them afterwards. So what we've built, we call the Kaizen Tiger Team. It's a team of agents, the analyst, the advisor, and the coach. And we think together these are going to deliver on the promise of Kaizen, but for the modern digital enterprise. I want to go through each of these, starting with the analyst. So what the analyst does is perhaps the most important part, which is understanding current state and keeping that understanding up to date. The way that it does this is it either does an AI interview with your employees, actually talk to them, you'll see that in a moment, or you can take videos like a Zoom recording or a Google Meet recording or a Teams recording and just give it straight to it. It can take existing files, Excels, PDFs, Word documents, And so it'll take all of that and turn it into really high quality current state documentation. And that's how it builds that understanding. But rather than talking about AI interviews, I want to just show you what an AI interview looks like. We've sped it up a little bit, so I don't bore you all with a 30-minute video. But you're going to see a video of our controller, Libby, talking to this AI agent in real time. And you'll see it kind of interview her and try to capture the current state. A little bit sped up. OK, so kicking off over here, ask you to share screen. It'll count down, and off we go.
Hi there. I'm Scout, your AI companion powered by Klarity. I'm here to help you document your business process. I can see your screen and will be taking notes as you walk me through your process. Feel free to talk through everything you do, the steps you take, the decisions you make, and any important details. When you're ready for me to ask follow-up questions, just click the Q and A toggle to enable my responses.
Here in the campfire, I am recording my India invoice for the month of July. Date, entity, currency, amount. First,
Libby actually talks this fast.
Then for the transaction, and then the total payable amount. 44532. Then I'm going to add my India department. And then sure, get your tech, and then yep, okay, all set.
You've done a great job documenting the steps for recording this specific journal entry. Now, let's dive a bit deeper into the process. To help us understand who is involved and who to go to with questions, could you tell me who are the main stakeholders and contacts for this process, such as anyone in IT, compliance, or operations?
Yes, I received the invoice from our head of operations for our India entity, so I can talk to him. He also gets support from a third-party consulting within the department locally in the US.
Great, thanks for that information.
OK, so now it's actually building the documentation in real time. And just like that, it's been able to capture the entire process by both listening to what Libby said as well as watching the work that she was doing. And so just to recap really quickly, that's our AI interviewer. We've built it so it requires zero prior experience. This is not meant to be some like power user AI tool. There's no judgment and no pressure. One of the things we learned from our customers is there's absolutely nothing fun about your boss watching you do your process. It's even less fun when there's 10 members of a transformation team watching you. And the beauty of using AI is it doesn't care if you need to get coffee or go to the restroom, or if you screw up 5 times and you only get it right on the 6th time. It's super low pressure environment. And it's always available. There's no more having to schedule calls sometime out. And this sucks for both sides. If you're the analyst having to do this, you have weeks of calls that you're having to do. If you're on the other side, you have to take time out of your job, schedule with somebody else, and sit down for an hour and a half, maybe on a group call. That's gone. It'll be there any time of the day. And it'll actually prod to find exceptions. We all know there's like 10% of exceptions that drive 90% of the complexity. So just capturing the happy path doesn't cut it. So as you saw in the video, it'll try to dig a little bit deeper and say, hey, what happens if this goes wrong? Who's involved in this? What are the systems? And so forth. We also added in this feature where you can actually customize the questions that it asks. For example, if yours is a multinational company and you want to ask your employees, hey, which geography does this activity happen in? You just add that question in there, and it'll just blend it. It'll weave it into the conversation. You also have the ability to assign interviews out to other team members. You can do this in just a couple. You can do dozens. You can do hundreds at a time. And each person just gets a really simple email invitation. They click on it. They go in and do their interview. Completely self-explanatory. So very simple technology, but powerful implication, which is that a small team of people, or even one individual, can effectively interview hundreds of people across the globe, which has never, ever been possible before. And it doesn't just work with these AI interviews. It works with videos. It works with files. So if you already have recordings, which I think most of us do, post-COVID, a lot of things are recorded nowadays, with Zoom or Teams or Google Meet, you just download that file, upload it right in. It works with any existing documentation that you have. So we have customers, for example, that'll have flow diagrams, maybe SOX flow diagrams. It can understand images. It can understand spreadsheets with multiple tabs. So it'll work with whatever you already have. Next, I want to show you how it actually captures current state, the kinds of documentation it's able to produce. Everything that you're about to see is 100% AI generated. So first, it's able to create these really detailed process narratives. And the way we set it up is it'll start with the activity, then the task, the subtask, and the steps. So if you're an executive who just wants to skim it and get a sense of what's happening, it'll work for you. And if you're joining a new team and you need to go all the way to the button click level, it'll work for that too. The beauty of this is it's both visual and it's listening. So it's actually able to incorporate screenshots, images into the documentation that it creates. And we're all visual beings. No one wants to read a 30-page document. This makes it a lot easier to read. We all know that it's good to do this, but it's very hard to do manually. Super easy for AI to do. And then it can actually go beyond just regurgitating what it saw. It can actually identify pain points. So for example, if you said, hey, I have to do a bunch of manual data entry, even if you didn't say this is a pain point, it knows that you're expressing something that can be improved upon, so it's going to catch that. But sometimes we're so used to doing things a certain way, we don't even know that it's a pain point. It's just implicit. And it'll pick up on that too. By just watching the way that you're operating, it'll catch small inefficiencies. This makes for a really fun experience, because within minutes, you're able to record the process and then get this immediate feedback of places where you could increase the efficiency. It's the first AI that can create these high-quality, editable process flow diagrams, and you can actually modify them right in our application. It creates them in this format called BPMN, so you can actually import them into other applications like UiPath and Pega and Camunda. So if you have a business process modeling team or an automation team, it's compatible with the systems that they use. And finally, it's not a one-trick pony. So this isn't an SOP generation tool. We have a library of different types of templates, different kinds of documents it can create, from process definition documents to SOX narratives, and much more. You can actually build your own, or it can reverse engineer it for you using AI. So it can have your logo, your style, your fonts, the specific instructions you want it to follow. So what that means is the documents that come out will feel like they were written by your best analyst who's been at the company for years. It'll look completely similar to a really great piece of internal documentation. Okay, so piecing all of this together, in speaking to our customers, what we heard is that doing this manually, to do it well, typically takes 10 to 30 hours. You have to go interview the process owner, then you've got to create a draft, take it back to them, see if there are exceptions, modify it, do that again and again, and then you're done. So 10 hours would be really, really fast, mostly higher than that, up to about 30 hours. With Klarity, this gets squeezed down to 30 minutes. You're doing an interview for typically 20 to 25 minutes, and then it's able to create the documentation for you in minutes after that. That's a 50x compression in the amount of time that it takes. So when Andrew talks about kind of AI outcomes, what we're so excited by is these aren't 10 and 20% improvements. It's a complete step change compared to what the status quo used to be. But we don't just want to dump a bunch of PDFs on you and call it a day. So we've built this thing called the process hierarchy, or process map. That's kind of a logical way to organize all of this data. The way that it works is we custom build a process hierarchy for your organization. We have internal tools that'll basically look at your online the company's online profile, not your online profile, public filings, LinkedIn job postings. It'll glean all kinds of information about your organization, so we can custom build this hierarchy for you using your nomenclature, your words. And then as you fill out these processes, it'll automatically also extract these metadata attributes. How often is this process being done? The number of iterations? How long does it take for each iteration? Which systems are you using? Which teams are doing this process? All of that gets automatically filled out. So we have systems of record for technology. We have systems of record for people, HR systems. This becomes a system of record for the actual work that's being done. So you get this bird's eye view of what exactly people are doing. Next, I'd love to show you a couple of case studies of how our customers have actually put this to work. First, I want to talk about MPE, a private equity firm based in the Boston area. In fact, David and a few other folks from the MPE team are here today. If you have questions, come find them after. And what they used the analyst for was standardizing manufacturing processes, highly complex manufacturing processes, to ultimately reduce risk and streamline the execution efficiency. What was so cool about their use case is they actually had people going to the factory floor with a cell phone, interviewing people, literally recording machinery, uploading that in directly, and they were able to create documentation just using that. In fact, so good that they were able to even pin it up on the factory floor. And we were delighted to find out they created actually hundreds of pieces of documentation across portfolio companies because this process was so simple and so repeatable. And in fact, they were able to create hundreds of artifacts in 3 months. So again, when we talk about AI outcomes, this is the kind of thing that would have never been possible with human consulting or an internal team. It's never possible to look at this many processes, let alone to do it in a matter of a few months. Next, I want to talk about DoorDash. Gordon is here, Brad is here. You'll be hearing from Gordon a little bit later in the afternoon. But Gordon is perhaps the most tech-forward executive that I've ever met. And he was looking at what are all of the places within his accounting team. Are there opportunities to transform with technology, to look at the entire function holistically? But he was also very clear with us that he did not want this to be a burden on the team. He wanted AI to really empower people, not to take them away from their jobs. And so he was able to have hundreds of his team members record short videos, individual activities that they're doing, down to the button click level. And in just 15 minutes, they're able to spin up pieces of documentation. And in fact, this worked so well, he was able to create more than 1,800 pieces of process documentation. And all of that within 4 months. So again, orders of magnitude that would have never, ever been possible before. So that's the analyst. It's the first member of our team. It gives you visibility like you've never had before, down to the button click level. You can scale it across all of your team members or within the value stream that you want. And then it's a huge compression in the amount of time because you now have this fleet of agents that's doing the work for you. Next, I want to talk about why current state capture is actually important. Why is it important to actually build like 1,800 pieces of documentation? Well, the fundamental reason is whatever our objective is, whether it's order to cash transformation, ERP modernization, CPQ implementation, we cannot do it well if we don't understand where we are today. And I know all of us have probably felt this itch to let's just execute, let's get on with it, enough of the documentation. But equally, I think we all know we can't execute well and reasonably expect ROI if we don't really understand our current state. And that's where our second team member comes in. We call it the advisor. The advisor sits on top of the current state capture, on top of the process hierarchy. And its job is to help make recommendations for you so that you're able to go from current state to recommendations that you can actually execute on. And rather than me talking about it, I want to, again, just show you how it works. So here's a quick video of the advisor in action from inside of our product. There's no audio on this one, so I'll just voice over it. But the way that the advisor works is you're able to first select the scope of processes that you want to run a query on. So you could do everything, hundreds or thousands of processes, or you could say, I just want to focus on this geography or this value stream. Next, you give it an objective. This can be really high level. You can say, I want to make financial close faster, or I need to implement a new ERP system. And then it'll go off and it'll start thinking for about 2 minutes. And the way that it thinks is actually very similar to how a human thinks. It'll look at a few documents, build a hypothesis, question itself, and then go deeper. And it does that again and again and again. The only difference is it's about 1,000 times faster. And so it's going to look at all of this documentation that you have as part of your current state, and then it's going to come up with a transformation report. So I want to dig into the types of reports that it's able to create a little bit. First, you can use it to just analyze your current state. Where are the pain points in where we are today? It is particularly good at cross-process patterns. This is something that even for the most experienced human being is very difficult to do, to look at like 1,000 processes and know that there's effort duplication between process 2 and process 756. Impossible to do. It can then actually generate opportunities and recommendations. Any of you who have used ChatGPT know that you don't want to just let it loose and use its own judgment, come up with all kinds of stuff. So what we've done is we've built out this entire playbook of hundreds of strategies that it can apply, ranging from operational excellence to technology, to team and organization structures, risk and governance. So it has this really holistic understanding of what strategies to apply and when to apply each strategy. As a result, when it makes a recommendation, it'll give you a lot of detail. It'll give you the evidence that it's using, and it'll reference specific SOPs, specific metadata that it used. It'll tell you exactly what it's planning, And then it'll kind of play the devil's advocate to itself and go, hey, could this be a bad idea? Why might this be a bad idea? And have a little bit of that internal dialogue so there's no like foot in its mouth type situations. And then it'll try to do an ROI estimate for you using all of that quantitative metadata that we were able to gather in the current state. Finally, it'll assess feasibility. So the goal here is not to make the decision on your behalf or your team's behalf. It's to give you all of the information that you need to very quickly skim it and decide, yes, I want to do this, or no, I don't. Like even the best advisor, it doesn't know everything. It only knows what's part of that current state capture. So when it has to make assumptions, it'll do that, but it'll list them all for you. So it knows exactly, you know exactly what data it's going off of. And then finally, we can take it a step further. And I can actually build the entire roadmap for you. If it's generated 10, 20 individual recommendations, it could stack rank them against each other based on impact, effort, its own judgment, and come up with a proposed roadmap for you. So that's our insights feature that powers the advisor. What makes it special is, first of all, its breadth. This isn't purpose-built for one transformation objective. You can use it for anything. Order-to-cash transformation, procure-to-pay, ERP modernization, agentic AI deployment. The depth that it's able to achieve can do things that none of us as human beings can do in a matter of seconds because it's able to go into everything that you've captured in current state. And speed. From capturing the very first process to actually having a full roadmap with recommendations that you're ready to execute on can be as little as 24 days, which would have typically taken many, many months, if not more than a year. And because we're using AI, once you capture the current state once, you don't have to do it again and again. So if we have another transformation objective for the same value stream, it's even faster to just get to recommendations. So bringing it back to Kaizen, we think that this is going to be really valuable in empowering your team. This is not meant to replace human decision-making. It's meant to accelerate it, to make better decisions, and to democratize that so that your middle managers, even ICs, are able to have powerful intuition, put that to work. So I want to share a couple of case studies of how our customers have used the advisor. Frankly, some of these use cases are not ones that we anticipated, so we're pleasantly surprised to see how it worked. The first is from a Fortune 500 multinational real estate company, and their objective was finance process standardization and cost savings, particularly impactful for them because their finance team alone numbered in the thousands across dozens of geographies. So what they did is they started by using the analysts. They captured their current state, using the videos, got their documentation, made a process hierarchy, and then they used the advisor to actually create recommendations. In their case, it was their transformation team. And within a very short span of time, they were able to find 25,000 hours of time savings with the recommendations that the advisor made alone. In fact, they told us that their own SMEs were surprised by some of the recommendations because it's not things that had occurred to them, and that they loved it. Things like, for example, duplication in journal entry processing, inefficiencies in vendor onboarding, cash application inefficiencies. I would argue they're actually a very well-run company, but it's only natural to have these kind of inefficiencies when you're operating at that scale. It's very difficult for human beings to be able to pick up. Next, I want to tell you about a customer of ours that is a Big Four firm that's using Advisor to accelerate their ERP projects. To any of you that have been part of an ERP project, first of all, my condolences. It probably went on forever. But there's a reason they go on forever. They drive tremendous impact. They touch so many parts of the enterprise. And they're often the most expensive, tens or hundreds of millions of dollars. What was fascinating to us about this use case is we obviously didn't want the advisor to just go off and make its own recommendations, even using our playbook. This firm has dozens of years of expertise. That's what makes them so good at what they do. And so what we're able to do with them is take client videos, client documentation, but also to pass in their proprietary IP and blend those together to actually create project artifacts. So not just generic transformation reports. They were able to create the fit gap analysis, the tagging spreadsheet, the BRD that was then directly sent out to clients, obviously after some internal review. So this process actually worked so well for them that they were able to do it more than 1,500 times to create 1,500 distinct client artifacts in just under 6 months across a number of different clients. So that's the second member of our agent Kaizen Tiger team. It's the advisor. The advisor has a level of breadth and depth that has never been possible before, and as a result, can really compress down transformation project timelines. So lastly, I want to welcome the newest member of our team that actually nobody has seen outside of all of you, so I'm very excited to get your thoughts afterwards. It's the coach. And before I tell you what the coach does, I'd like to tell you why we built this. So there's this age-old challenge in every organization, Andrew alluded to it, which is that change is really hard. We're all human beings. Changing the way that we operate is really, really difficult. Even for the most AI-native person, it is still very difficult to do. And then when you try to do this at the level of thousands of people, obviously it's really compounded. And so deploying technology is often much more about human change than it is necessarily just about technology and systems. And of course, AI makes this a lot harder. Coming back to this curve, the gap between where you could be and where you are today grows and grows over time. Maybe today it's the difference between using and not using ChatGPT. In 2 years, there'll be hundreds of agents out there that AI fluent teams are using, and hundreds of agents that non-AI fluent teams are not using. The opportunity cost is going to skyrocket. I don't think there's a great solution out there that any of us have today. And if we look at like a lot of the posts that CXOs are making online, it's generally like this pattern, right? Hey, please be AI native. If you don't be AI native, you're going to get left behind. AI won't replace you. Somebody using AI will replace you. Like all these things that I'm sure we've all heard. Not to say that any of these are wrong, but if I'm an IC in a company and my plate is already full, like what does this really do for me? It's hard to make people actually AI fluent without the guidance on how to do that. That's why we built the coach. We think that this is going to be the defining problem for enterprises in the coming years, and we think the coach can make a lasting impact. Its beauty lies in its simplicity. All you need to do is share your screen and just do your work. You don't have to talk to it. You don't have to record notes. You don't have to do anything different. It will just silently observe. And that's it. You can go on for hours on end. It's not just like 30-minute slots. You can do multiple processes just the way that you would work normally. I'd love to show you a quick video of the coach in action. And so you go off and start the session. You don't have to give it any context. It'll ask you to share your screen. And then you can just do your workflow. Again, exactly how you would normally. No special considerations because AI is watching. You can flip through screens. When you're done, you can end the coaching session. It'll analyze your workflow, and then it'll ask you, hey, were these the processes that you did? And then once you confirm, it'll go off and create a report for you. And then it'll send you an email. So I want to just double click on a couple of things. You saw it just pull up that screen. What it's basically doing is in real time, it's cross-referencing all the work that you did against that current state process hierarchy. So if you have hundreds or thousands of processes, it's figuring out which 5 or 6 you just did in your working session. And then you get an email like this with a coaching report inside. And this is where the magic starts. So you click into it, you get a report that you download, and this report has 3 parts to it. The first is what we call your mastery, what you did really well in a way that's aligned with the company's current state, the SOPs. And what's powerful about this is even for the best performers, it's hard to remember everything over time. I mean, this is why even pilots have a checklist. So that positive reinforcement to know that you did it the right way is incredibly valuable. And for new employees, it's even more powerful because you want that positive reinforcement. This is what the best coaches and mentors do. Unfortunately, it's not scalable without technology. And you'll see that it links it back to the SOPs to not just give out general compliments, but say, this is what you did, and this is why it was good, because this is what's spelled out in the current state. Next, it'll highlight the innovations that you made. Every single team has high performers who exceed the SOP, if there is one, by doing some things differently. And it's, I think, a challenge for all managers of how do we lift everybody to approach the level of those high performers, but not do it in a way where you're having them teach everybody and then you kind of lose their high performance in the process. And that's what this is doing. This is basically finding where you did something that was more efficient than what's in the SOP. And again, it's going to find that specific action of exactly what you did and tell you what the impact was. So going back to that Kaizen principle of giving people visibility and building the common truth, we don't just want to say, good job, you did this. Why was it impactful? Maybe you helped a downstream team that you don't even work with directly. And then finally, perhaps the most impactful part, but which is generally not the most fun for us when we're giving and receiving it, is feedback. How can we improve? How can we get better? And what it's able to do is to actually deliver individualized personal feedback to everybody every day in two ways. It'll compare what you did, of course, to the current state, and it can find where they're misaligned. And you did something, maybe you skipped a step, you forgot about something, you didn't do a validation. It'll pick up on that. But it can also use that recommendation playbook that we've built to make first-of-their-kind recommendations to say, hey, your company has bought ChatGPT, you could use that over here. And in this way, we're actually creating new recommendations and improving processes and paving the way for AI fluency. So we're going from putting all the burden on people to come up with ideas of where to use AI to allowing the system to help them find those. So you may be wondering at this point, how on earth does this thing work? I just wanted to peel back the curtain a little bit. What we basically did is built this system that can watch very, very long videos, even if there's no audio, because we don't want to bother people to have to speak out. And it'll just map all of the activities that you're doing over time. And it's smart enough to not get distracted. So if you happen to open email or something, it'll know that that's not part of the process. Then it's going to align it with this process hierarchy that you've already built, no matter how big or complex it is, to figure out which specific processes you did. Then it combines all of that to make the final report for you. So that's the coach, newest member of our team. We think this delivers on the promise of always on Kaizen. These words, I think, have become very trite, of continuous improvement, always be better. It's so hard to do. We think the coach gets you there. It surfaces improvements that people are making, and soon we're going to be launching a feature that incorporates them back into the SOP with your approval. And so the current state goes from just being a capture of the way that the work is being done to constantly getting updated with improvements and driving efficiency for the rest of the organization. So your entire team is getting lifted up by these new innovations that are being uncovered. And finally, we believe this is the pathway to an AI-fluent team. It's not about forcing people or continuously asking them to come up with innovations. It's impossible to do that. But this gives it to them and makes suggestions, which is, we think, a much better way to move towards AI fluency at scale. We really wanted to build this feature in a way that prioritizes the personal growth of the employee without compromising enterprise productivity and enterprise outcomes. So first and foremost, it truly uplifts the employee. It's been actually wonderful to see that with our own ops team, that they love using this because all of us want high quality feedback. It's just really hard to do. Second, it's really built with privacy top of mind. The recordings are deleted the minute you create your coaching report, and nobody can see the report but the employee that created it. So if I'm a new hire and I'm joining a company, no one's going to see all the mistakes I made on the pathway to learning my SOP. However, we will have logs of the number of coaching sessions that were done. So if you're a manager of a team, you can see who's using this feature. Of course, you can't see the report, but that already gives you a very good sense of who's investing in their growth, their productivity, and their improvement. So we're super excited to get this in all of your hands. We're opening our early access program today. So if this sounds interesting to you, please come find one of us afterwards, and we would love to partner together to get this deployed at your organization. That's our Kaizen Tiger team, the analyst, the advisor, and the coach. We are excited to see how you put them to work and what these agents can do for you. And we're looking forward to moving from a world of static transformation projects to a world of continuous Kaizen. Lastly, we talk a lot about how fast this is to use. And just to do good on that, if you have interest or a use case that comes to mind, shoot us an NDA today, and here and now, we will give you a tailored demo so you can see how this would work for you. Thank you so much.